Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video, and of course, just this past weekend, as I know, you all know, we all know, was of course the annual race of the mountain, the Bathurst one, the Repco Bathurst 1000, which has now been run, and won on Sunday. Of course, I was going to do this review of the race on Monday, but of course I was too tired with work, and same to yesterday. So I decided I'll record this on Wednesday, as I am recording this. So let's get into it. So the whole weekend itself, because there was much talk before the pre-Bathurst 1000 weekend about the weather. As it turned, it was going to look like that it was going to get worse and worse and worse as the weekend went on. It went on. Surprisingly, when Sunday came around, it was actually quite good weather. But some parts of the track weren't as dried up as others. We'll talk about that. Later. So, and because of the weather, and Saturday it was worse. I mean, I didn't. I actually. The story was I was watching something on my phone. I think it was YouTube or something like that. On my phone, just for between practice 6 for the supercars and waiting for the top 10 shootout to come to be on. Then I realized, and then it started. It normally starts here at 5:05. I decided to switch on the TV, and actually it was on the news, and I was like, "Hang on, what's going on here?" So I checked my phone. Went on the official Supercars app, which I recommend you download, by the way. And it said the top 10 Bathurst shootout was cancelled, and I was like, and seeing the footage, some of the footage that I've seen. It wasn't a surprise. I mean, I was a bit disappointed that shootout got cancelled, because of course it's the most exciting session of not only the weekend itself, but for the year. I mean, you don't get that too often, where you get 2 minutes or so, and 6.213 kilometers to yourself to go for pole position. You don't get that too often. Unfortunately, it got cancelled, and unsurprisingly, I thought that they would have maybe would have scrapped the warm-up session, the traditional warm-up session they do on every early Sunday morning. I thought they would have scrapped that and then do a Sunday morning shootout. But the only problem would be, for me, was I thought to myself, would fans want to come through the gates that early just to see a top 10 shootout session about 2 hours before the actual race? And also they would have to, teams have to change setups real quick. So if for the Sunday morning for the shootout, and then if they qualify on pole, they have to really quickly, change it to a race setup very quickly in time for the race. Which, of course, not surprised that was turned down, and instead they used the qualifying results from the day earlier, which was a Friday. So I'm not going to run through the entire grid, obviously. Obviously, just a few mentions here. So Cam Waters, so the number 6 car of Cam Waters and James Moffat started from pole position, with Lee Holdsworth and newly signed 2023 Road Racing driver Matthew Payne right next to him. On the front row. Most notable ones: Richie Stanaway and Greg Murphy in the Boost Mobile wildcard entry did very well. Not surprisingly, we all know Richie Stanaway's abilities in the wet. We've all seen it. And it's great to hear news earlier today that he really wants to return to full-time supercars racing, which I hope he gets, because and I hope it's a good seat too, because obviously he deserves it. I mean, Shane, originally that car was supposed to start from 5th because Shane Van Gisbergen started 4th, but they got caught up in a penalty with got penalty for hitting Macaulay Jones at the S's, which I want to talk about this for a bit. Don't get me wrong. So what SVG did, it's just not on. I mean, you cannot pass people into that corner. But I did straight after that incident. I went on, I always go on Instagram, Facebook, or them, and I went on Instagram. I think I can't remember. I think the either the Supercars official account or Channel 7 Sports official Instagram account that did this thing, or did it fit when it was announced he got a free pace grid penalty? Was it fit the crime? Everybody, from all the comments, almost 90% of those comments were saying SBC should be dropped to the back of the grid. He should be dropped to the back of the grid. Yes, for the move, yes. But what people don't realise with their freaking eyes was the fact, if you look it up, if you watch back the footage, you could see on the left-hand side, on the leaderboard, on the totem pole that Supercars broadcasts have, he actually had a purple first sector. And he also, there was also an article that he did on that Speed Cafe did, where he quoted, and during that quote he said that he saw in the distance Mako go wide at turn 1. So his lap's gone, and obviously if you take into account him having a purple first sector, little wonder why he was such a hurry to try and get around Macaulay, because obviously because you never know, because eventually that cost him pole position. Not the grid penalty, but that incident itself cost him pole position, because he was trying to find a way around Macaulay, and because of that, that wasted him time, and that could have got him pole position for the race. But I think for me, the comments about the grid penalty that SVG got given was a bit out of proportion, really. In my opinion, I think as I said, he had a purple first sector. Macaulay made a mistake at turn 1 way before the incident, on the same lap as the incident, I should say. Sorry, and yeah, so but as I said earlier, don't get me wrong. What SVG did was just not on. You cannot pass someone heading into the S's. It's a one line groove, and that for that part of the track, and I think I have a conspiracy. I think if Macaulay Jones did not crash, I have a feeling he would have got a penalty for impeding. because he was on a purple first sector. Because he did crash into the wall. Obviously, and so rightly so, SVG got the slap on the wrist with the free place grid penalty. But I think the comments of standing into the back of the grid just were blown out of proportion, really. But the way the punishment was handed out, I think the stewards did take Shane's first sector into account. I think judging by my opinions and judging by what my thoughts are, I think they really took it into account, because because straight up, if he had a red first sector as well and wasn't improving and he'd taken him out, then no doubt, bang, he would have got sent to the back of the grid. But since he was on a purple first sector, they said, you know what, yeah, we'll just give you a free place grid penalty. So moving on. So all three Erebus cars made the top 10. Obviously, Stanaway and qualified fifth, but went up to fourth. And Brody Kostecki and Will Brown ended up finishing up P9 and 10, which there was signs Kostecki throughout that session was going to make the top 10, but I didn't think Will Brown was going to, because he showed that pace that he could crack the top 10 pretty late in the session, and yeah, so that's what I thought there. The big names that missed out on the top 10 on the shootout, which eventually got cancelled, as I said. Anton Di Pasquale was a shock one. I definitely expected him to make the top 10. He didn't. That mistake, going down his skate road on his last probably it would have been his last attempted lap, really ruined his chances there. Heimgartner and Dale Wood in 12th. I expected them to, as you said in my preview, I predicted them to start on the front row. They didn't even make the top 10. So I got that. I had that prediction completely wrong on that front. Strangely, in the other Red Bull car, Jamie Whincup was in the car for qualifying. He did. There was multiple occasions where he did qualify to get in the top 10, but was bumped down on many occasions. Apparently, Brock Feeney wasn't comfortable in the wet conditions. I think he was like 4 seconds slower in the wet, and I think it was 4 seconds slower than all the other regular drivers. So he wasn't very comfortable in the wet at all. And other than that, yeah. Other than that, not many surprises, to be honest. After that, David Reynolds and Matt Campbell, they started 18th comparison to the other car qualifying on the front row. So it was a pretty bad qualifying session there for Davey on that front, which would prove costly when it came to Sunday. So let's get to Sunday. Where do we start? So the start of the race happened. I just felt something about this pre-race. I was like, I was so antsy and ready to go to get this race underway. I was just so amped up and all that, and finally the race got underway, and we only got about 500 meters until we had our first safety car first accident, which it looks of things, it looked like that Whincup slid into the patch of long strip of water from that thunderstorm that hit the previous day that was going down Mountain Straight. And then because of that, I think it was a squeeze between Tony D'Alberto and Dale Wood, and that's how how Whincup got turned around. Out of all, and then chaos just ensued. Michael Caruso ran to the back of Tyler Everingham, damaging both cars. Amazingly, the only casualty from that incident was the Thomas Randall Zach Best car driven by Zach Best. And it tried to avoid it, seen in the grass, and of course, with the amount of rain it had the previous days, just bang. It was just all over and bang into the wall, and it was game over. So it was unfortunate, really, for of course for Randall and for Zach Best, which I thought that would be one of the driver combinations to watch if they would qualify at the front. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and unfortunately, they didn't last any more than one corner. So that was unfortunate, really. So we got the first safety car period on lap 1, then the restart came. Later on the restart, Zane Goddard trying to make a move on Greg Murphy, which was a bit of a move. Like, why would you make that sort of move on lap 5 of the race? Why would you do that? He ran wide, and it looked like he was going to rejoin it safely, but as he was about to come back on, he slid through the mud, and basically, instead of re-entering like this through the chase, he went like this, and went right into the path of Dale Wood, collecting the right front of his car, lifting the whole right side of his car up in the air as he's hit the wall. And poor Matt Campbell had nowhere to go, ran straight into the front of car 5, and with a blink of an eye, we've had 2 safety car periods in 6 laps. So I was like, okay, what's the rest of the day going to be like now with these 2 safety car periods? For that incident, I think 100% it was Zane Goddard's fault, and I appreciate the fact that he openly admitted that he apologetic and about the move. He was fined eventually he was fined $10,000 for the incident. The one thing I remember was poor Dale Wood that cut to him, and he was just emotional, and he was so looking forward to racing at Bathurst this year, of course, with Andre. Of course, there was much talk about Andre, obviously, coming off his successful weekend a few weeks ago at Pukekohe in New Zealand. Such high hopes for car 8. Unfortunately, didn't last. It only lasted 5 laps, and unfortunately been taken out, wiped out like that. It was unbelievable, really. And when this happened, I was pretty much in shock of not just the incident itself, of there's 2 safety car periods and we're not even 10 laps in. And I can see where everyone's coming from, everyone's treating this like a 5 lap sprint race. I mean, and at one stage, I think we had about 4 safety car periods in in the first 30 laps. And I've got to say this, guys. I've watched many Bathurst 1000s. I've watched Bathurst since when I was 7. 2007 was my first Bathurst 1000 I ever watched. I've never seen I've seen full races that chaotic. 2014. They've been so chaotic, or ending of races. Example 2016, they've been so chaotic. But I've never seen a start of a race that chaotic as that. Never before. I've never seen it. some of the drivers were acting like it's a 5-lap sprint. As I said, 5-lap sprint race, for God's sake. It was just, some people were commenting saying, do these guys know they've got another 150 odd laps to go? Yeah. Eventually, in the middle part of the race, they all settled down pretty much. I think we got 70, 50, 60 laps on the green at one stage. And we only had 2 or 3 safety car periods in the last 100 odd laps. I think only 3 safety cars that I remember after the chaotic start. In the end, it came down to a 3-horse race between Shane Van Gisbergen, and Garth Tander, who were the dominant car of that day. I mean, I think they led about over 110 laps of that race. Eventually, the Chaz Mostert, Fabian Coulthard car, with for Mostert looking to make it back-to-back Bathurst wins, and Cameron Waters and James Moffat looking to avoid Bathurst history becoming the first for Cam to become the first driver to be runner-up 3 years running. Unfortunately, they were out of the race, out of the running for the win, so they had to settle for third in the end. So it came down to either car 97 or car 25. And in the I watched this. I barely spoke for the next like 10-15 laps, because for the last 10-15 laps before the last lap, because I saw what happened last year. Shane SVG was hunting down Chaz, and unfortunately his tires failed, and obviously he ended up finishing down the ladder, and Chaz ended up winning the thing. This time it was the reverse, which was Chaz was chasing down Shane. And throughout that whole last lap, I was going to say, come on, Shane, because I really wanted him to win. Of course, it's the last Bathurst 1000 for the Holden, for the Holden Lion, the big red lion, the final ever Bathurst 1000 we see with the Holden brand, and of course SVG. He eventually won the last Bathurst 1000 with the Holden factory team in 2020. Now the last Bathurst 1000 with the Holden brand itself. He ended up winning it, only just, and I was just so pumped up and so happy, because of course I've been a lifelong Holden fan. Very sad the Holden's going at the end of the year from Supercars racing at the end of the year, but yeah, I was so happy. I was over the moon with the result, and then. Yeah, so I'll end up finishing down the final results here. So I'll name all of them here. So Shane Van Gisbergen and Garth Tander ended up winning it for Red Bull Empire Racing. The official race time, by the way, for anybody that wants to know. 6 hours, 41 minutes, and 53 seconds, by the way. So, just to anybody who wants to know that. So, as I said, Van Gisbergen and Tander ended up finishing first. Second was Chaz Mostert and Fabian Coulthard. They were so close for Chaz to make it back to back, but finishing second. Cam Waters on the podium again with James Moffat in third. Brody Kostecki ended up finishing fourth position. did not want excuse me did not blah. I can't even speak here. Sorry guys. Yeah. We all. I just. They were not. It was basically like last year where they just snuck up on us, and they were in position to be on the podium again. Unfortunately, they ended up getting passed by Cam Waters, so they ended up finishing off the podium. In that case, P5 was Brock Feeney and Jamie Wincup from starting from after starting from 14th on the grid. Really good drive for especially after being caught up in that lap one chaos, lap one pile up. Down at Mountain Straight, it was very good recovery from J-Dub and Brock. So yeah, sixth place was Lee Holdsworth and Matt Payne. Very strong. These two were pretty much very strong all day. This combination was very strong all day. Matt Payne impressed, obviously. Of course, as we all know, he's going to be driving for Grove Racing in 2023. So he pretty much had to impress, and he did, which I'm very happy he did. And Lee Holdsworth, a good way to go out for him, and possibly in his final Bathurst 1000 appearance as a full-time driver. So yeah, another driver combination that flew under the radar in the race. In seventh position was car number 100 of Anton Di Pasquale and Tony D'Alberto. Really did fly under the radar. Remainder of the top 10, Craig Lowndes and Declan Fraser, the wildcard entry. They were the first wildcard entries across the line. That's a prediction I got right, because I did predict that Lowndes and Fraser would be the best wildcard, which I'm very happy about. Bryce Ford and Dean Fiore, they had a pretty. They didn't get caught up in any incidents. They just went about their race and got a top 10 finish. Was their reward. And Will Brown and Jack Perkins up rounding out the top 10. There was another car that ended up in that first lap. Calamity up Mountain Straight. There were another casualty of that, but they ended up. I think that at one stage they were like about one or two laps down, and they ended up because of the new rule, the rave around thing, which I give thumbs up. But I like that new rule. By the way, I think that got them back into the race, and obviously they salvaged the top 10 finish out of that, which was brilliant for them. Outside the top 10, I'll run through these very quickly. Richie Stanaway and Greg Murphy in 11th, James Golding and Dylan O'Keefe. I think they were one of the pairings of the race, to be honest, because even though Golding in that stint, early stint in the race was amongst co-drivers, they really were strong in the end. They at one stage they were actually up in 6th position at one stage, and they were looking like and they were challenging Lee Holdsworth, the Holdsworth Payne entry for 5th position in that at some point in the race. But unfortunately, they had problems with the compulsory brake pad change, which meant they dropped down. They had a problem with the front splitter on the car. Sorry, wrong one. It was the splitter of the car they had the problem with, and luckily enough, they ended up recovering it and finishing in P12. P13, Macaulay Jones and Jordan Boys. 14th was Jack LeBrock and Aaron Seaton. As I said in my preview, so good to see Seaton back in the Bathurst 1000 field. I hope there's more to come for Aaron. 15th, I give absolute plaudits to Mark Winterbottom and Michael Caruso. How they finish on the lead lap in a car that had the front, that basically had tape all over the front of the car from the damage on lap 1 when Caruso went into the back of Tyler Everingham. It was just beyond me, and a big plaudits to them really for that. Speaking of their teammate, their teammate finished behind in Scott Pye and Tyler Everingham, finished P16. The Kostecki's, Jake and Kurt finished up P17. P18 were the other the third wildcard entry, the Caltex young stars entry in Matt Charter and Jalen Robotham. I've actually got that name right this time. Actually, because I did watch the telecast of the Bathurst 1000. Obviously. And the last car to finish on the lead lap was in P19. Actually, so many cars finished on the lead lap. Was Tim Slade and Tim Blanchard, in which they did start from last. And at one stage they were up inside the top 10 in the early stages, obviously because of all the chaos and that from the early part of the race. They did hit the wall. Blanchard did hit the wall at Forest Elbow. Which basically was the end of their race pretty much. They never recovered really, but they did end up finishing the last car on the lead lap. The others as well, the others that finished laps down, like Todd Hazelwood and Jaden Ojeda, they finished P20, but they finished up 2 laps down. In the end, they hit I think Todd hit the wall at Griffin's Bend at Griffin's Bend. At some point later in the race. I didn't see the incident itself really. I still haven't seen the incident actually. I haven't looked back at it actually. P21 was the 22 of Chris Piffer and Cameron Hill. I still think that Coke car looked absolutely wonderful, to be honest with you. And then the last car to finish the race was car number 2 of Nick Percat and Warren Luff, who got off to a really good start in the end. I think both WAU cars were I think Mostert was P2, and then Coulthard was P2, and Warren Luff was P3. Unfortunately, Percat, I think he also hit the wall, I believe, somewhere. I think it was also Forest Elbow, I believe. It was Forest Elbow. And unfortunately, they ended up, many laps down and all that. So, and they ended up finishing at the last cars to finish. The non-finishers, the Davison brothers of Will and Alex, were a late race casualty with Will, with them being in not one but 2 incidents. The first one with Alex down at the chase, which absolutely dirtied the car. It was absolutely covered in dirt. And then the second incident on lap 141, where of course Will went straight on and hit the wall at Griffin's Bend, which ended their race. Jack Smith and Jackson Evans, they were the other retirements. They already had crash damage from the lap 1 incident, but unfortunately I think they got beached. I think at pit entry, and unfortunately that was the end of their race. then the three cars that got caught up in the lap 4 incident down at the Chase. James Courtney and Zane Goddard, Andre Heimgartner and Dale Wood, and David Reynolds and Matt Campbell. Entries. They all were out on the spot pretty much on the 4th lap, and then of course the only one, and then of course the first casualty for the race was number 55 Castrol car of Thomas Randall and Zach Best as well. So that was the final results from the Bathurst 1000. Unfortunately, as we move on to the championship, because of Cam Waters finishing 3rd, unfortunately, the SVG didn't wrap up the championship at Bathurst, so it goes on to the Gold Coast. But he has a 567-point lead. It's literally down to Cam Waters now to defeat Shane Van Gisbergen, which is highly unlikely that will happen. Highly unlikely that will happen. I mean, Chaz Mostert moved up to 4th in the championship. The big mover was Brody Kostecki. I mean, he moved up to inside the top 10 in the championship. And not notable others that jumped up in the weekend too. Not much really, but in the next Supercars round at the Gold Coast, there is the chance in the first race there'll be the chance that SVG could wrap up his 3rd Supercars championship this season. Of course, he's already broken the record for the most amount of wins in the season, which was held by another Kiwi in Scott McLaughlin in 2019. And I wonder if he can reach the 20th Supercars win of the season. That would be an impressive achievement for the Kiwis. So that is pretty much it for this video. Like this video. Share to anybody who's a Supercars fan or a Holden fan or a Shane Van Gisbergen fan. Comment down below what were your thoughts of on the race. What did you thought of the race itself as well. I like to hear you guys' opinions down in the comments. And one last thing, somewhere down there is the big red button which is labeled subscribe. So until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you, which was clearly shining on SVG and GT on Sunday.